You're listening to Autumn on the Air, the weekly podcast that brings you conversations about the impact of research commercialization and the people who make it happen. Join us for interviews with patent and licensing professionals, innovators, entrepreneurs, and tech transfer leaders on the issues and trends that matter most. Keep listening for an inside track on the people, IP policies, and politics changing our world.
Welcome to Autumn on the Air. If you work in technology transfer, you spend a lot of time thinking about industry partnerships, how companies evaluate academic discoveries, how deals come together, and how relationships evolve over time. Today, we're looking at those questions from the perspective of a company that many of you likely interact with. My guest is Hsiaoli Chen, Senior Manager of Corporate Innovation Partnerships at Thermo Fisher Scientific. Hsiaoli is a trained biomedical researcher with nearly 20 years of experience in business development, technology scouting, and licensing across the life sciences and pharmaceutical industries in both the U.S. and Europe. She earned her PhD in biological structure at the University of Washington School of Medicine and has been a certified licensing professional since the early days of the program. In her role at Thermo Fisher, she works directly with companies, startups, and tech transfer offices to identify emerging technologies and build partnerships that bring new tools and capabilities into the broader research ecosystem. Welcome to the podcast, Hsiaoli. So excited to have you here on the air.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, joining the podcast.
Well, very excited to have you here. And I thought I would start the podcast off by asking you a little bit about your career journey, because I know you started your career in academic research before you moved into business development and licensing. So share with us a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, what pulled you from the lab into the technology commercialization side of science?
Absolutely. So you mentioned, I was the academic researcher before. After I completed my postdoctoral fellowship at University of Washington at the time, I moved to Munich, Germany, working in a startup company and doing biomedical research, particularly congestive heart failure. I joined it as a kind of a group leader, try to identify leads to treat congestive heart failure. And during that time, it was a small company. And the CEO kindly asked me whether I would explore from the business development licensing part of the business. That was not I originally planned to do. Was given the opportunity, and I was curious about how would that turn out. So that's why I took the opportunity. That was, over 20 plus years ago. And since then, I've been really enjoying doing licensing in and out, and also partnership business development. And it's just a very different type of partnerships we have been doing today with Thermo Fisher. Back then, it's more like a biopharma licensing, that sort of partnership. But I really enjoyed it. And that's why I continue this technology transfer business development journey since then.
So how do you think being a researcher has shaped how you interact with inventors and tech transfer teams today?
I think that definitely have a plus impact, because since I was a researcher myself, I really appreciate the detail and the efforts the inventors, they have to put in to make, something meaningful, tangible to share with the broader world. So because of that, when I look at the opportunities technologies offer to me today, I really like to understand more the scientific part, right? So how this happened and what kind of experiments have been validated, performed to bring the technology to the stage. So I think that appreciation, because of my scientific background, that helps tremendously of today what I do.
I would say so. It sounds like it's really been instrumental. And, many of our listeners have interacted with Thermo Fisher at some point, given the breadth and the depth of the products that it offers. From your perspective, how does Thermo Fisher think about its partnerships with universities and tech transfer offices?
Well, first of all, we really appreciate all the researchers from the university or research institutions. Those are our customers. So really appreciate they continue wanting to work with Thermo Fisher using Thermo Fisher's products. And because of that layer of engagement, so a lot of interactions that we have through the tech transfer offices is actually by introduction by the researchers themselves. Sometimes they will reach out to us directly. Sometimes through the tech transfer offices, they reach out to us. So we understand that layer of partnership. So not naturally, a lot of technologies are a bit early stage technologies because that's how it is. And since that is, we always open to evaluate early stage technologies. And because of the engagement from the tech transfer office, it's also vice versa, right? Sometimes we need to reach out to a tech key opinion leader, KOL, and we'll through the tech transfer office to introduce us to the right KOLs in a particular field. So I think there are multiple layers of potential partnerships that we view the interaction with the tech transfer office.
Definitely. And I want to go back to something you mentioned about emerging technologies, because I know that's a big part of the work that you do is identifying those emerging technologies. When you're evaluating a new opportunity that comes from a university, is there something that signals or gives you a sense that a technology is worth taking a closer look at? And if so, what are those things?
Yes, that's an excellent question. Because Thermo Fisher's products are so broad, it could are from the instruments to reagents to software and many different things. And it is right. It's sometimes very overwhelming amount of opportunities coming in. But what will be really catch our eyes would be if the opportunity we already benchmark a particular type of products we offer. So for example would be we receive an invention disclosure or tech flyer from, let's say, University of Oregon. That's where I am in Eugene, Oregon, just an example. And it will say, oh, we have a discovery resemble or benchmark or better than one of our fluorescent detection reagents. And sometimes even have the name of that product, right? Because the researchers, they probably, when they develop something, they use that particular product or benchmark their comparison experiments with that product. And that sort of indication in the technology flyer, that would be, of course, a very helpful that we immediately would say, yeah, sure, we know how this works and which group will be the most appropriate group to evaluate this technology to facilitate the whole, evaluation process.
So as you know, tech transfer professionals often sit between inventors and industry partners. Given your experience, what helps bridge the gap between academic discovery and something that industry can realistically adopt or perhaps even develop further?
So like we talked about earlier, this is most of the technology are early stage technologies. We understand that. So if there are some validation, downstream validation required, even if the professors or the inventors couldn't do it, if they lay out what additional experiments are required, right? So that would be already give us some guidance if we take it on at this stage, what additional development efforts we need. So I think that would be a kind of good estimate or guidance to have before we decided this is the right stage, the right time we jump in to secure the technology.
It makes a lot of sense. And, as you well know, too, licensing conversations look very different depending on the type of company involved. And Thermo Fisher, as you mentioned, it's a huge global company, lots of different products. What does a productive licensing conversation with a university look like from your perspective?
Right. So again, Thermo Fisher, the type of technology we do, the expectation is this are more technologies driven. So it's not really to the whole drug development, such a early, that whole long process, right? The technology normally we license between 12 to 24 months after we sign agreement, the product could be on the market. Versus if it's a biopharma, that sort of license, you would have probably, 5 to 10 years.
A long runway.
Exactly. So because of that, I think the expectation of the value, the size of the license is proportionally is not a huge investment like a drug development process. I think that mindset kind of help to keep the expectation in the same area, that we don't negotiate from far apart. So that helps a lot. And also the other thing is because of the technologies that we develop, a lot of times there are multiple technologies together. So we will need some sort of royalty management or reduction mechanism to better attribute the contribution of each technologies in order to make sense for us to put the final product out there. So I think that is kind of expectation from the university side. If they could understand that will help tremendously for us to move forward the negotiation. And the other thing is important, but it's not the last important, is the contract template thing. A lot of universities have their own template, and Thermo Fisher, as we understand, probably we're a big company and we do so many licenses, and we have our own template. So the contract negotiation, a lot of time, if either party are a little bit more flexible to review or willing to look at the other party's template, that helps tremendously too.
Yeah, flexibility and not being necessarily married to your particular template, because I've run into those problems too. Sometimes certain institutions are very stuck or inflexible might be a better word on their templates. So it's their template or no other way, which can obviously create friction and other issues as well. Now, you've really had a global career there at Thermo Fisher, working across the U.S. and European ecosystems. Have you noticed a difference in how universities approach these industry partnerships in different regions?
Yes, absolutely. The time when I worked in Germany back then, that was in addition to different type of deals we do than Thermo Fisher, but also interact with different universities. Although at Thermo Fisher now, we still continue work with a lot of European university as well. I think the main difference is the universities in Europe, the professors, they have more directing or guidance than how they want the technologies to be commercialized. Some of the territories, I think even today, like Sweden or maybe part of New Zealand, I'm not 100% sure, but Sweden for sure, that the universities, the professors own the patent, right? The professor have a stronger say on how he or she want to commercialize the technology. Versus in the US, I think it's pretty much the tech transfer office and the professional tech transfer managers, they would see a broader value of the technology for commercialization. Professor absolutely can have input, but it's a tech transfer office more in the driver's seat. Yeah, and also in terms of patent filing part. I think in the US, it's like we for sure will file the patent protection in US first, and then depends on the commercialization process, may file in Europe or, China, Japan, but it depends on they secure licensee. And I think in Europe, my experience is they probably file their territory, right, in Germany or France first, and then they may file EU. And sometimes they may not have broadly covered like what we would like to have, but if we give input, they would do it. Yeah. But again, because the professor's involvement, or sometimes, as a professor, he may not be able to cover such a bigger territory for the patent protection.
Yeah, and I have seen that in Sweden, and I think a little bit in Finland as well. It seems like some of the Nordic countries definitely have that different approach to university professors owning their IP, a different structure than the U.S. And it's really interesting. It makes it, I think, a different mindset when dealing with them for sure. So Thermo Fisher sits very close to the research environment itself. Are there some particularly exciting scientific or technology trends you're seeing coming out of universities right now?
Yes, thanks for asking this question. We see nowadays almost anything have to touch AI. If unavoidable, but even, chemistry or biology screening, AI-related technologies become very popular, and also automation, right? So how to combine AI and automation together. So AI could be something like using AI, the model system, to predict peptide or protein or antibody, right? What would be the strongest binders out of this prediction? And then this is becoming more and more popular, especially given last year, I think the Nobel Prize laureate in chemistry, Professor David Baker, from that area. So we see a lot of technology from this area. And the proteomics research, right? Single cell proteomics, that is becoming more and more popular. I think genomics was probably the golden child of, probably still today is, but in the last decade. Nowadays, proteomics, post-translational modification, this type of research combined with single cell analysis. So this is something I see more and more. And also for spatial biology, people no longer just look at 2D dimension. People looking at 3D to monitor the physiological changes of cells in a 3D spatial environment. This is something also I think more and more become popular for research, and also technologies coming our way. And last but not least, I really appreciate if we see a lot, but it's for cell and gene therapy, this type of research, and how to improve or consolidate the whole manufacturing workflow for cell and gene therapy. Because I think now, because of the regulatory environment, we got more and more approvals for cell therapies. And the amount of research in this area it's also become tremendous more than a couple of years before. So this is just some of the things I saw very excited coming up.
Given all that's coming out, how do you and your team keep up with things? Because there's got to be a tremendous amount of research that you guys keep up with, just given everything that's going on at the moment.
Yes, exactly. Given that our products are pretty much touching each one of these that I mentioned. Yeah, therefore, we just have to be, how do we say? Yeah, we have a funnel, right? So a lot of things coming in, not only from the universities, but also from startup companies, biotechs, and sometimes even our competitors. They have some technology they want us to consider to commercialize that. Yeah, we will just have to have a pretty robust evaluation process internally, and it's more business-driven, business unit dedicated. So for me, I'm covering certain areas. My counterpart, my colleagues, they cover different areas. And typically we have our product managers, our R&D colleagues, and myself. We would review the technologies and look at the pros and cons from different angles. And if it pass through all the checkpoints, then we move on to the next one. And we will get our IP counsel involved if it's a more advanced stage, right? Because that takes some of their time as well. If something that we really feel this warrant the advanced further evaluation, almost always we will need to have a technical evaluation, as well as at the same time we start making a business case that this is something worth investing and then get our legal colleagues also involved to help to evaluate. Yeah, it is a collaborative journey within Thermo Fisher by itself. But yes, it is a lot of opportunities coming. Therefore, we got to have some filters also very quickly, and we know yes or no.
Yeah, like you said, very robust processes in order to evaluate just the flood of information and that you must be getting in.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Hsiaoli, many of our listeners are people companies like Thermo Fisher interact with when new technologies are being evaluated. In your opinion, what helps a tech transfer office stand out as a strong partner?
Yes. So from my personal experience, right, if I already have a partnership with a particular university, that normally helps the most. That I know this university we work with, and we signed the agreement already, and we know the boundary of what they can accommodate. That normally helps tremendously. But not all the technologies from the switching licensor. So when the new one comes, like I mentioned earlier, right? If they can benchmark Thermo Fisher's product somehow or instrument, that helps, right? We know this is a incremental improvement, or this is a disruptive, a replacement of what we have. So that type of information would be tremendously helpful. And then also, if the technology coming in with more complete information, of course, one-page flyer, that helps. But if there are additional publications or waiting to share public patent information of the technology, if we can get all of that as a package, that would be very helpful too. Then we have everything. We don't have to go back forward, multiple times to require that information.
And have you ever seen an instance where a university technology was scientifically strong, but ultimately you didn't move forward with a partnership? Because I'm kind of curious, what holds those particular opportunities like that back?
Yeah, that actually happens sometimes. If we see a publication in Nature or Cell that we're very excited, we want to reach out, and we did reach out. One example that I don't want to specify the institute, but sometimes the technology is developed was sponsored by multiple universities or a consortium. And in that case, one example, we really wanted to get exclusivity on that technology, but it's just not possible because of the arrangement of that consortium, right? And the best we can get is a non-exclusive, and then, with a lot of string attached. And at the end, the business will evaluate, well, it's great, but unfortunately, we couldn't get access the way we like to. So I saw that as the opportunity. That is one way. And the other part, which is the technical evaluation part, from the paper, it looks wonderful. This is exactly what we like to develop. But like I mentioned, we always want to bring the technology in-house to technically evaluate it. And under our setup or our conditions, unfortunately, some technology just doesn't perform as what we needed it to perform. It's not that the publication is not good enough. It's just in our particular setting, it doesn't cut it. So unfortunately, in that case, because we just don't have that time to fine tune the technology, right? So that sometimes we will have to pass.
Kind of like a scale up type of problem. Sometimes things work really well at a bench scale, but then when you go to scale them up for whatever reason, they just don't work real well. Kind of a similar type of analogy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If there is one piece of advice you could give to tech transfer professionals that are thinking about how to build stronger industry relationships, given all your experience, what would that be?
I think we touched on that already. It would be probably prepare a clear, concise technology offering to us, right? Like the point I mentioned, if there's Thermo Fisher product or processes, say that's clear that we would be very interested in that because of the related benefit to the existing products or even the new products in the existing market. And then be flexible to the negotiation terms a little bit, sometimes adopting the template for the industry. It's just because that would save the time and also bring the deals to closure much more efficiently. And then I think the get together, like the autumn annual conference or bio, this type of thing to really put the face together to the other side, I think that's of tremendous help too. That I know, oh, this is the gentleman or the lady that I connect. But I think these are most of the listeners probably already been doing it. But I just thought this would be tremendously helpful from both sides that we can proceed.
Absolutely. And so our listeners can reach out to you. I'm sure bio is coming up shortly, and then I'm sure we'll see you again at the autumn annual meeting in 2027.
Yes, I'm looking forward to.
Yes. Well, Hsiaoli, this has been great having you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for sharing insights with working with Thermo Fisher. It's been really my pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you very much for hosting me, Lisa.
Hsiaoli, thank you for sharing your perspective on how companies like Thermo Fisher engage with universities and tech transfer offices. It's always valuable for our listeners to hear directly from industry partners about how these collaborations develop. For our listeners, we'll include links in the show notes to Thermo Fisher Scientific and Hsiaoli's work. If this conversation sparked ideas about how you approach industry partnerships at your institution, share the episode with a colleague and keep the conversation going. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Autumn on the Air.
Thanks for listening to Autumn on the Air with Lisa Mueller. Get social with us and share your thoughts. You can tweet us at AUTM or visit us online at autm.net. We'll be back next week on the air. Be sure to join us.